Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to the Conquering Your Clownfish podcast. It's my pleasure to introduce our special guest today, Abbey Benjamin. Abbey is a mom, disability advocate, and nurse. She is also a successful children's book author that has published 3 books so far. She has 2 wonderful children, a son named Tommy and a daughter named Avery Joy. Avery was born with a genetic disorder and started having seizures at 4 months old. Abbey uses her Instagram channel at Abbey Benj to help make the world a more inclusive place. She enjoys living life to the fullest, enjoying every moment, and finding joy in the journey. Abbey, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What a beautiful intro that is.
Thank you. Yep, thank you so much. So I have to share with our listeners that this podcast is a long time coming. We actually recorded this podcast once before, and the recording didn't work fully. And so we attempted to record it again a week or so ago, and we had an internet issue. And so, as we say, third time's a charm. Can't wait to be able to visit with you again, Abbey.
Yes, that was good. This is it. This is the time.
This is the time. This is exactly the time. So this is super fun because I do feel like I know you fairly well now, and I absolutely love following you on Instagram and the stories that you're sharing right now with Avery Joy. Yeah. There's a lot of things that are transpiring in your life, many of which we are going to get to right now or get to in this episode. But for our listeners' reference, please share a little bit about your journey.
Yes. So, I'll kind of go back a little further, but I'll make it as quick as possible. When I was about 20 years old, my dad passed away in May, and I was supposed to spend the summer working my desk right across from him at a bank. And so I last minute had to find a summer job, and I found a job working at a summer camp. And 2 weeks later, I was working out there for the whole summer. And it just so happened that camp was a summer camp for children with disabilities. So I spent my whole summer that year at 20 years old doing that. Years later, I became a nurse, had my son who is now 10. And then a couple years later, had my daughter. 4 months after she was born, she had her first seizure. And that kind of became the road. We followed down that road. Found out she had a genetic disorder, and here we are 7.5 years later, and very thankful for the life that she does have. And it all comes full circle. And actually this coming week she will be going to camp, so I'll be able to take her and drop her off at camp where I worked 15 years ago. So full circle. Wow. God's
so it's
moment.
The same camp she's going to be going to the same camp where you were at.
And I still work there as a nurse too. So, I mean, I'll be there. I try to stay away and let her have her fun, but I will be there 3 out of the 5 nights as well.
Incredible. So if you look back at age 20, when you worked at this camp, what was the impact that had? I mean, you didn't have a sibling that had any type of disability. That was really kind of your introduction into the community. What was that experience like for you? How did that impact you?
Yeah, so I really did not have much experience with people with disabilities at all, and kind of went in a little blindly to it all, and dare I say ignorant. Each week was kind of a specific, maybe not disability, but different. You know, you may have developmental disabilities one week, or children with epilepsy one week. So each week I was exposed to new disabilities. I was exposed to new worlds, and just really opened my eyes to seeing the ability, even back then at 20 years old. I think the world, it's just such a cloud that gets put over people with disabilities, as, you know, they can't do this or can't do that. And even as parents, you get used to hearing, no, your child's not allowed to come to this, or no, we're not accepting people at this time. And so to see a camp that was, yes, bring them. We'll figure out a way. We'll make a way. Yes, they can ride the zip line. Yes, they can ride the horses, and finding a way to make everything accessible. And so just seeing that opened my eyes so much. and really seeing what the physical and emotional toll it took on me as a 20-year-old. And I remember getting in my car leaving one week and just started crying because I thought, oh my gosh, the parent does this 365 days a year. I just did this 6 days and I'm like wiped. And so now I am the parent that does it 365 days a year. So it's very full circle. And they're so great. They allowed me to actually talk to the counselors last week before they started this next month. And I kind of told them that. I said, you know what? You're going to be tired. And when you get tired, you remember that the parents do this 365 days a year, so you can make it these 6 days or 5 days. So it was
Beautiful.
a very special place, and still is for me to this day.
So something that I want to share and point out is when you went to that camp when you were 20, there were probably many parents that were hesitant to allow their child to go to camp. And so in essence, every child that was at camp that year was there because their parents were brave. Their parents, in what I would deem as conquered their own clownfish and allowing their child to go and do something scary and do something hard that was uncomfortable for parents, uncomfortable for child. And that child got to go and experience that. And that's a beautiful thing for that child. But look at the impact that had on you, your 20-year-old self, because those parents were willing to do that.
And it's
so now,
yes, absolutely.
Yep. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say it's something too, I think, that is so special to me because my child who is nonverbal is able to go and make these connections with the counselors, with the other kids in her cabin that she wouldn't be able to do if I were there with her.
That's right.
And so she's able to have people learn about her and learn different, of course, before you leave, you give them the lowdown. This is what she likes, and pick her up and hold her hand and do this. But it's so funny, by the end of the week, the counselors kind of become, they are the experts, and, oh, well, we found Avery likes this and we did this. And it's so fun, not only for the counselors to get that experience, right, but for my daughter who is nonverbal to be able to form relationships with people and for them to realize you don't have to, there's so many different ways to communicate. You don't have to talk to each other to be able to form a bond and a relationship.
So how impactful was that experience for you when you received Avery Joy's diagnosis and you knew that this was going to be your new norm? Did you reflect back to that experience you had at age 20 and was that impactful, positive, or even maybe a little bit like, oh no? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so definitely positive, I think, because I looked back at, hey, look at what there is still availability. There is still hope. There is still things that my child can participate in. And holding on to that, I guess, holding on to that hope that there is so much that she can do. And even since the 15 years that I was the counselor out there, of course, there's so many more things that they have added,
That's right.
but just the opportunity that even after that diagnosis, that was not, this is not the end. What all can we do? What all is possible? And I really see the ability has really been kind of at the forefront of my mind. I don't know why this summer just kind of themes come up for me in my life, and the ability has really just formed in my mind. And it's something so important that we all should do, see your child's ability. It may be different than others, but each child has their own ability, and it's kind of up to us to kind of help our child to flourish and find what their abilities are.
That's right. You hit that just so well. I believe that with all my heart, that every one of our children has unique abilities, has something special about them, and even a unique purpose on why they are here on this earth, especially those individuals that have a little extra something, whether that's a disability or whatever that may be. And so, but you're absolutely right that those individuals, like our children that have a disability, oftentimes are not going to be able to realize that on their own without us being able to get way outside our comfort zone and help encourage them and put them out there into some of these scary situations. And so you're absolutely right on that.
Right. And it's very, and back, she's taken dance, and she's taken 5 years now. I think 5 years.
Mhm.
But I remember back to the first year doing it, and it was very even uncomfortable for me, very uncomfortable for my husband, because we're putting her in a class where kids are tapping and they're jumping, and her disability and not being able to walk and not being able to sit up was so new and fresh, like an open wound. And so going to the classes and watching was almost like pouring salt over that open wound. It was very difficult to see. It was almost like, they weren't, but like rubbing in our face what all they could do. And Avery was just having to sit in her chair. And it was very uncomfortable. And through the years, every year, she's gotten a little more comfortable. We've gotten more comfortable, and it is no longer that open wound. It is now I don't even see the other kids running and jumping in the background. I see only Avery. And so I think just by pushing yourself, sometimes you have to be a little uncomfortable. Like you said, sometimes you have to be uncomfortable as the parent, because it was not a comfortable thing to put her in dance and have to kind of watch that and, watch her be pushed across the stage where the other girls are doing on their own. But now, like I said, all these years later, I can't even see the other girls. I've got my blinders on,
That's right.
It's no longer a sad moment or a sad day for me. It's a very proud moment.
So I've seen those videos, and that is a beautiful experience. And that is interesting and special to hear how your mindset, or how maybe where your heart was initially, and how that was difficult to be able to see that at first, but how that transformation has taken place. And my guess is, for those who have been following, or those that are maybe attending those recitals, that have a daughter or somebody that is there with Avery Joy and seeing this and witnessing this, I'm guessing their heart has evolved too, because chances are it was probably a little uncomfortable for them at first. But now, fast forward to what it is right now, probably one of their most favorite parts about going to those recitals.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm not mistaken, your son, let's see, Tommy's a baseball player.
He is.
Okay, so this is something that's super unique, because if Tommy has a baseball game, which sounds like he's a good baseball player, so he has a lot of baseball games, this is something that you guys go to as a family.
Yeah.
And so Avery has seizures, and she has them often. And the chances of her having one at a baseball game is pretty likely. And so talk with us about that and the process that you've gone through in deciding, and then ultimately deciding to be able to take her to these games.
Yeah. So I'll go back to years ago when he was kind of first starting baseball and really all his sporting events. We had a difficult time. We would try to take her. She would have a seizure. I remember very vividly years ago, she had a seizure during a soccer game. And so we're on the side of the soccer field in the grass, trying to get out the rescue med because it was a long seizure, and just, kind of being embarrassed for ourselves, embarrassed for her that she's having to go through this. Felt bad for Tommy because he's over here playing soccer, and then we're having to do rescue meds for his sister. And that was very vivid in my mind. So we really struggled a lot with that balance of, okay, you take him to the game and I'll stay home with her. And we did do that for probably a few years, or at the beginning we try to take her some, and then we'd end up at home. And call it time, call it experience, whatever you want to call it, no longer got to the point where that was an option. If she lived for 7 more weeks, 7 years, 70 years, we wanted her to be a part of everything that our family experienced. And so we decided to start bringing her to everything. We'd bundle her when it's cold, and we'll buy some fans and, strip her down to spaghetti straps when it's hot, and she doesn't miss a game. And it even got to the point to where, just specifically this past spring, she had a really bad April, a terrible April actually. And we went to the game and she had a couple seizures during the game, a couple pretty terrible ones. And it got to where the families were so in tune, they were so used to seeing that they ended up like, hey, can I help you? Can I get this for you? And they knew what to grab and how to help us. And it made it to where it wasn't such a big deal like it was years past. You know, it became more, sadly, it became more normal for those families, those parents, those kids. I even had one of the little sisters knew that we needed, she has a VNS, so it's a magnet you have to swipe for her seizures. Mm-hmm. And one of the little sisters knew, you want me to get her magnet for you? And so even the kids were watching and they got to experience or were exposed to seizures just by us being there. And so it was very important to me that regardless of what was going on, that we made it a point to put our family first and have everybody together. And, you know, if she was going to have a seizure at home or a seizure at the ballpark, I no longer cared if it upset anybody or if it made anybody else uncomfortable, because that was our reality, right? So I think it's been a lot of, you know, obviously growth for her, but probably a lot more growth than me that I would like to admit. Over time, I cared less about what other people thought and other people's feelings, and cared more about what was best for her and our family.
Yeah. If there was an award that is the Conquering Your Clownfish Award that we could give, you would be the most deserving parent that I have ever had on my show, because look at the good that you're doing. Like, not only are you giving Avery the opportunity to be able to go experience, to be there, to be part of it. It's a beautiful thing for your family. But what a beautiful thing for those other families that are there. In particular, the example that you shared about the little girl, that was normalized for her.
Right.
That maybe that was the first seizure that she had seen a few weeks or a few months before you started to bring her, when you first started to bring Avery. And that was probably a scary thing for her. But then because of you being able to normalize that, being able to show that this is my daughter and she deserves to be here and we want her here and we love her here, that the rest of the individuals followed. And for that girl to be able to go and say, can I help you? Can I get the magnet? And can I be able to impact that? You are making a difference on those individuals, because I can almost guarantee that somebody that you have had interaction with, that you've been able to normalize this, whether that's a child or a parent that has a future grandchild, they will have somebody that has a similar experience. It could be a loved one, that could be their own child, and they will reflect back, and it will give them peace that we can do this. Because Abby and her family were there with Avery. I know that they did it and they thrived in this. I know that we can do this too. And so thank you for being such a great example.
Oh, I don't know. That's very kind to say. I appreciate it. I don't know. We just pull up the bootstraps and get it done, I guess. So we just push forward.
Yep. So I want to be able to visit, and it sounds like you have some exciting news that is on the cusp that we would love to have you share if you're open to sharing.
Yes. Is this about her special partnership modeling?
Yes.
Yes, so
it is.
She was actually a couple months ago, I saw that H&M, the brand, H&M Kids, had a hero competition, Kid Hero. And I thought, well, who better a kid hero than my daughter, who fights epilepsy daily, who still continues to smile, who shares joy with everyone she knows. And so I entered her in this, whatever it was, contest, whatever, mind you, and added pictures, and they sent back a little thing I could share on Instagram, and I thought that was it. And a few months later, they messaged me and said they wanted to go to the next round with her, and I still really wasn't sure what was going on, but I thought, okay, so we answered about 10 more questions about what made her a hero, and then we got selected to go to another round and had more pictures and questions taken, and so she has been chosen as an H&M Kid Hero. And so they will be sharing her stuff on their page, sharing about her diagnosis, which is so important because it is such a rare diagnosis that the more people that read about it and, you know, are interested in it and maybe even donate $1. I mean, they have, millions of followers. If everybody donated $1, we could maybe help find a cure for her diagnosis. So important that other kids are going to see her in a position of modeling, that she's being shown off as a hero in her wheelchair. And it's so important to have her and other people with disabilities represented in such a huge platform. So excited about that.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And this is going to the most deserving person out there with Avery. This is going to be so amazing for her. And congratulations to you as well for putting that out there and being willing to be able to make the effort to give her that opportunity.
Absolutely.
What a great thing. Yep. What a wonderful thing. I'd love to ask you a question. As you look, so how old is Avery now?
She is 7.5.
Okay, so you've been on this journey 7.5 years. If you look back at yourself 8 years ago, before you started this journey, before you even knew that you were going to go on this journey, and now you fast forward 8 years later, how has this changed you?
How has this is probably a better question. I am a different person. My husband is a different person. I think it puts your whole world, it turns your whole world upside down. And I think it can turn your whole world upside down in an awful way, but it can also, if you let it can turn your world upside down and still be such a beautiful life. There is still so much joy to be found in the journey and in the high and in the lows, that I truly almost feel sorry for people who have only typical children. And that sounds so crazy to think, but I feel like they'll never know the immense joy and pride I feel because of all the lows that I've seen my child go through. I feel like the joy and pride I have is so much higher because the lows are so much lower. And so it's changed everything. It's changed the way that we view the world. It's changed the way that we view other people. And so it's, everything about me, my mindset, my life, my purpose, it is all related to that. The life that God has given us, and she, like you said earlier about her purpose, she has a purpose, like you have a purpose and I have a purpose, and it's up to us to live that purpose out. And so that's what we're going to do.
I know exactly what you're explaining. I have experienced it and felt it in my own heart. In fact, in the Down syndrome community, there's a hashtag or kind of a saying of the lucky few, meaning that there's only so many individuals that in this world that are entrusted to, that get to go down this journey. And as you described that is not just applicable to the Down syndrome community, that is applicable to the entire disability community, because what you had so eloquently described and what I would describe in my own words is it allows us to be able to turn our focus from an inward focus on ourselves, and it in a way forces us to be able to turn that focus towards somebody else. And by turning our focus in the service of somebody else, we ultimately find our own purpose.
Absolutely.
And that's what I have found in the disability community is purpose, our own unique purpose in and through the service of others. And you're doing that so well with your daughter. Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.